Good morning. Good morning from Tennessee. All right. What's up, everybody? Glad you could join me here today. Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, Mrs. Aircrete. Okay, guys. So I'm here today for Q&As about the last two video, whatever you guys might have questions about. Greetings. Hello, James. Yes, you certainly did make it. So the last two videos I put out were about the Aircrete R value testing that we have to have done. I definitely plan to have a number of samples tested this year, between my Aircrete sample being the first, then the Styro Aircrete, which I really like a lot, high insulation value, and then my Epic cement mix. I'll be having all of those samples tested this year, and we'll know exactly what the R value is on each and every mix that I make. So I'm looking forward to having that done. Have some real valuable data come in about the R value of these cement mixes. And also, I spoke about the double shell Aircrete dome I'm going to be building in April. As soon as the weather gets nice, I'm going to start the build. I'm thinking it'll take 2 or 3 weeks to build. I'm not sure exactly, but I do expect it to go really quickly for one person. So we have a cloudy day today. It's all man-made. Tons of chemtrails in the sky. It's always chemtrails are constantly spraying up here. It's annoying. These are all fake clouds. None of these white clouds were here this morning. This was a clear sky. So, thanks to all the GMO spraying. So, you guys got any questions about anything concerning building Aircrete? Yeah, it's we get some days where it's warm, but just 3 days ago. Yeah, about 3 days ago it snowed here. We had about 6 inches of snow 3 days ago. And past 2 days it's been really sunny, so it's melted a lot of the snow. But yeah, the weather, it's off and on. The worst thing we get here is wind. We got a lot of wind right now, so it's warming up, but it's still really windy out here. Me and my fiance want to build a double shell dome this summer in Colorado to live in full time. Yeah, well, you could definitely do it. You can start getting your tools now, because once I start, I'm going to try and put a video out every day about the build as I'm going along. So we'll see how that works. Working all day, then editing and putting a video out. But that's pretty much the plan, is to put a video out every day, during this build process. But I like it a lot because the build process is number one, it's a lot stronger using this double shell dome system than building with Aircrete bricks. The other big thing is you'll be able to pass inspection and building codes because that first dome is reinforced with a stucco cement layer. So you'll probably be getting a 5,000 psi cement mix reinforced with basalt and fiberglass mesh. So that first shell will be really strong and will pass any building code that requires it to be passed. And then on top of that, you'll be filling a cavity with Aircrete insulation. I mean, you guys are gonna love it. The process is really simple. And if it's gonna be just you and your wife building, it won't be a problem. Um, the size of your dome is really important because the larger it is, the tougher it can be to spray the top of the dome. That's the most difficult part in building, in spraying these airforms, is getting to the top of the airform to properly spray it. And so, with the method that I teach, and anyone following my dome building workshop course will see, when spraying a dome, we spray the lower level of the dome and build up the strength so that you can lean a ladder against the shell as you're building it so you can spray the top. So it is possible to spray the top, but when you're building a larger dome, it's just something you have to be more aware of. Because, for example, our building a 16 footer is different than building a 30 footer because of the distance between the outside wall where my ladder will be leaning against to the peak of the dome. So I'm gonna recommend renting a man lift or bucket truck when it comes time to spray your dome. It'll make it safer, easier, and much faster if you're able to work from a bucket truck to access the top of the dome to spray. So that's something to really consider. Geodesic domes, they are definitely cool. They're strong. They're fast to build. You know, I have a geodesic dome that was given to me right here. It's a 16-foot geodesic dome, and we put that together in like 2.5 hours. And I was hanging from those bars in the middle, like no problem. So they are really nice for putting up. Um, and then obviously you have a lot of the wooden geodesic domes. And I do like the geodesic domes, but they, especially the wooden ones, they can burn. And so my whole deal is I want to build something that's fireproof, termite proof. You know, I don't want to have to worry about wood rotting. And so with this building domes with the cement, you don't have to worry about any of that. So um, that's a big reason why I didn't go the geodesic dome route. I do have some friends that built some geodesic domes, a greenhouse made of tubing, and another one made of wood. They're really nice, really big, but the other problem with the wooden geodesic domes is they can get a lot of leaking between the panels. And again, for me, they're not fireproof. And they're also not as fast to build as spraying an airform. So there's a lot of things to consider when building. Would any additional flooring be needed, or will the cement floors with a special paint suffice? Well, yeah, the floors will just be Aircrete insulated and a thin concrete layer on top. In my case, I'll be doing something different. I haven't really spoken about, but I'll be making a basically a floating floor in a sense. So I'm going to make a channel I'm gonna get away from using PEX tubing for radial floor heating, and I want to have hot air travel under the floor. So kind of be a floating floor. So I'm going to basically be making an arch, and half an arch, or rather a half a circle. So an arch tubing that'll go on the floor that will get covered with cement. So my floors will probably end up being 4 to 5 inches thick just because I have to cover the tubing that I'll be putting down on the floor to let hot air pass through. Because my intention is to heat the floor using two methods. One will be a rocket stove, and I'll be redirecting that rocket stove exhaust through the floor and then out a chimney on the other side. So I'll use a rocket stove heater to heat my floor. And then I'll have another option of a hot water heater, like a baseboard heater. And so there'll be two options. So I'll have a propane hot water heater blow the air through the floor. And I'll also have the option of a rocket stove heater being directed through the floor. So that's going to be really interesting. Um, Especially, I have a few ideas on how to do the floor, and yeah, so that's my intent. And my floors are concrete, and so once you have your finished concrete floor, nice and smooth, you could do whatever you want to it. I have my friend Dan. He painted tiles on his floor, and it looked really, really convincing. Like I was completely fooled for a few years. It's so funny. I was fooled by these floors, how good they came out, where I thought they were tiles, and still until I got down on my hands and knees and touched the floors, and I was like, wow, this is just paint. And so you could do a really nice job with paint. Um, so what he did was real simple. He just made a square 12-inch by 12-inch tile from like a piece of cardboard, and basically just dipped it into paint and stamped it onto the floor. So it was a really simple method that he used, but it came out really nice. So you have a lot of options. Once your floors are finished smooth, you can lay down wood if you want. If you want to put wood floors down, or carpet, or tiles, or whatever, painting. Another idea I had was using the resin. They do a lot of these resin floors that really look nice. My favorite's when they put the copper in the floor. So yeah, you got a lot of options for your floor. So you can go nuts on flooring. You just answered my question. Thanks. Great. Our idea for Aircrete dome are 16 plus and 20 foot, and connect them, or 124 foot to meet this square footage minimum for the county. Yeah, so um that sounds good. I mean, that's what I'm doing. 24-foot dome in the middle, and eight 16-foot domes around it. Living in a 16-foot dome. Um, well, let me put it this way. When I first moved to Colorado, my plan when I was sitting in at my desk in New York designing a home, my plan for a home was massive and completely unnecessary. Like I had a design of six 30-foot domes and like 10 or 20-foot domes. It was crazy. It was so many domes. But then when I got out here and actually lived in a 16-footer, I realized it was really a lot of space in one 16-foot dome. One 16-foot dome was 200 square feet. And when I thought back, especially being from New York, all the apartments I lived in, even the house I lived in, I didn't have one room that was 200 square feet. They were all smaller rooms, 10 by 12 or 15 by 12 in size. So none of the rooms were 200 square feet. So living in a 200 square foot dome, I realized that it's really all the space you need. And so my whole layout for my floor plans were having a dome for each room and having big archways connecting domes like the kitchen and living room dome. So my archway is like 6 feet wide and about almost 9 feet tall. So that's an open archway that connects the kitchen and the dome. I mean, the kitchen dome and the living room dome together. And so doing that, I have, you know, once you're sitting in either the kitchen or the living room, you have that big archway connecting them. So it looks very spacious. And then the way I have my domes designed is I have a ring hallway tunnel going around the 24-foot dome that the other 16 footers connect to. So I can separate them and you never have to see the door from the living room. So anyway, point is, um, the sizes you want to build, 20 and 16, and they're great sizes. They're also really uh, easy to build because they're not very tall, they're not very wide. 20 and 16 footers are really ideal size domes to build. And yeah, you can keep adding on to them. What I'm going to be doing this year with the 16 footer that I'm going to build, having the bathroom pop out from the dome is an idea you can do for a lot of your domes where you can have a bedroom that pops out from the dome. So you can have an arch roof, let's just say 12 foot wide by 12 foot long protrusion coming out of the dome. And anyway, it's a way to add rooms to a dome where so that they're all connected so you're not actually building separate domes. You could actually just build the arch the same way I build my door entrance and my hallway tunnels. So this year you'll see I'm gonna have a lot of these methods implemented. But yeah, you're 16, 20, 24. That sounds really good. The domes I'm building, the 16, the 8 16ers and the 124 footer, plus the hallways and everything, works out to about 2,200 square feet. And um, when I calculated the cost, it was just to build the structure was about $30,000. Now, because the price of cement and everything went up last year and this year, that figure goes up probably up to like 40,000. But you're still talking about an incredible structure you're building for 40,000. Excuse me. I'm a YouTuber. I watch a lot of YouTube. I'm into a lot of these building shows, and they're building like these tiny houses. And I see some of these tiny houses, 200 square feet. Some people are spending anywhere of 40 to like $90,000 for a tiny house. And it's nice and all, and maybe really good if you're planning to do a lot of traveling. But most people are just parking those things somewhere and not really doing a lot of traveling with a tiny house. So to spend 80 grand for 200 square feet, it to me is nuts. Like if you saw my channel and you see what I'm building, you could build for 30,000 or forget, even less, 20,000. You could easily build, 900 square foot space that's fireproof, hurricane proof, tornado proof, termite proof, a lot of proofs. Um, is actually resistant to all that, but depending on how strong each individual builds their dome, you're pretty guaranteed to have a proof structure. Who has certified test data so a PE can stamp plans for building department approval? Do you have to build where there are no building departments? What about real estate requiring other demolish or PE? Well, again, for this building method, for either the epic method that you've seen me build with or the double shell aircrete dome method, the big thing the engineers need to see, especially with the double shell dome, is they need to see the reinforcement and they need to see numbers that they know. So engineers, most engineers you run into are not going to know anything about aircrete. So it's a whole learning lesson. So although, I've been playing around with aircrete for 5 years, there's still a lot of people have no idea about aircrete, especially, building departments, building counties with building codes and engineers. So for the engineer, when you approach them, for example, with a double shell aircrete dome, the engineer is going to see that first dome shell is number one, a concrete he's familiar with because it's a stucco cement mix. And depending on your ratio of sand to cement, you can easily get a 5,000 psi mix with like a 4-to-1 sand cement ratio. And then you add yourself a plasticizer to that, you can probably get another 1 or 2,000 psi out of that mix. So we'll keep it simple. No plasticizers, just a 4-to-1 ratio, 5,000 psi mix. And then you're going to approach, you're showing your engineer your paperwork for your build. He's going to see 1 to 2 inches. And I say 1 to 2 inches because when you're spraying, you'll find that the lower portion of your dome, you'll usually spray a little thicker. And you will taper as you go to the peak of the dome. So you can be 2 inches at the bottom and 1 inch at the top, or 2 inches all the way. Either way, you're going to have a reinforcement. So you're going to have, in my case, I'm going to be using 2, maybe even 3 layers of reinforcement. So I have a fiberglass layer as my first reinforcement. I spray some cement on. I put a second layer on, which will be basalt mesh, 1-inch squares. I'll spray that until I can't see the mesh anymore. And then I'll put a third layer. So having 3 layers of reinforcement, of mesh no less. We're not even talking about rebar that would normally have anywhere from 6-inch to 12-inch squares, because of the spacing. You have a tight pattern of 1-inch squares because of the basalt mesh. So engineer is going to see that and he's going to say, wow, this is going to be super strong and super safe. So the engineer is going to sign off on the safety of your structure just based on that first dome shell. Then you're going to let the engineer know you're going to leave anywhere between 6 inches to 12-inch spacing between your first dome shell and your second dome shell. Obviously, if you're building in the United States or anywhere in the high in the northern climates where it's really cold, I definitely recommend 12-inch spacing. But if you where I am in this part of Colorado or anywhere lower, 6 inches would be really all you need. And next, the engineer is going to need to see the stamped engineer paperwork stating that the standardized aircrete mix design that you're using has X amount of R value. So once your building engineer sees the paperwork from the R value engineer, stating that the aircrete is, again, no one really knows. I've only just heard speculations and never seen anyone show any documentation saying, yes, aircrete is this standardized mix of aircrete is this R value. I haven't seen it. I've just heard speculations of aircrete being like 1.5 per inch, or 2, or the most I heard was 3. And it's like, what mix was that? Nobody knows. And so anyway, I've done a very light mix. I've done a 75 gallons of foam to 1 bag of cement. You're talking about one of the lightest mix. It's so light that it's fragile and breaks easily. But the thing about that mix is it's not meant to be, you're not meant to make bricks out of it. It's only meant to be poured into a cavity, poured into a mold. So by making two shells, one thicker than the other. And the other thing I didn't mention is that first shell that's reinforced and is like up to 2 inches thick. That first shell is also your thermal mass, which regular aircrete brick domes do not have. And that's key. It's vital to cold climate areas. A regular aircrete dome structure in warm climate areas is fine, no problems. But when you're dealing with cold climate and you have to heat your space up, you need the thermal mass. And you don't want insulated aircrete as thermal mass because it's going to suck. So having a solid 1 to 2 inches of cement will give you your thermal mass. So when you begin heating that dome up, your walls will absorb and radiate that heat back and will actually have you use less heating. You will need less heat to heat that space. So the big thing with the aircrete as insulation, the way I'm using it in a double shell aircrete dome, or even if you're going to use the aircrete to fill a existing wall cavity, maybe you want to insulate a barn or your basement, or maybe you just live in a house that has really bad insulation, you could use aircrete. Now for people who building and people who have to deal with building departments and you have to get a stamp engineer, the aircrete mix that will be used is a specific design that I've created, and that design involves using the aircrete thickener and the air entrainment because they really affect the aircrete strength. So the R value, the paperwork that I'll have available on my site after the testing has been completed, will also have the recipe, the standardized recipe for that particular R value. And so again, the plan this year is to actually send a number of mixes, different density aircrete mixes. As an example, the regular 40-gallon mix that's made for building bricks to build a dome. That mix I want to have sent in to have tested, as well as my very super lightweight aircrete mix. And I really feel that that mix that I have is going to be outstanding, R value wise. The aircrete insulation mix that I'll be applying into my 16-foot dome this year, it's going to be incredible R value. And for myself, the aircrete will be used not only in my walls for insulation, but around my foundation for the dome. So my system involves using a frost shallow depth footer system. And you can look that up. There's PDF out there. It's a federally recognized system for shallow foundations. And this is really good because by using this system, it allows you to go a maximum of between 12 and 16 inches into the ground, and be completely legal to use. You pass building code, but in order to use a frost shallow depth footer system, you need to insulate the ground around your foundation. And the requirements are an R15 value going vertically up the side of your foundation, and then horizontally going out 4 feet from the foundation. You have to have an R, I think it's 15 or an R30. And you have to put that all around your foundation. So long as you do that, you do not have to dig down to frost depth, because you're talking about in some areas you might have to go 30, even 48 inches down before you could build your structure. So this frost shallow footer system is a key to saving money and time in your build, but you have to insulate it. So for myself, I'll be insulating the outside of my dome with Aircrete, and then I'll be covering that Aircrete up with dirt. So you won't even see, there'll be like about 6 inches of Aircrete around my foundation going out 4 feet. So that's for a frost shallow depth footer system. Yeah, the wind is starting to get, if it's starting to get windy, I apologize. I got lucky. I had a little bit of time with no wind, because it's been very windy here. So yeah, so Doug, as far as that, anyone is good as long as they have the structural engineer paperwork, and the structural engineer needs the R value report. He needs that in order to process your paperwork. Anyone building anything in any building, in any county with building codes, I guarantee you, as long as you have a structural engineer paperwork, and you don't have any silly HOA, regulations in the area, you will be allowed to legally build a DIY double shell Aircrete dome, or even an Epic dome. So all you need are engineers stamped paperwork, and any county will have to let you build your dome. As long as you have the engineer paperwork saying you're going to be safe, that's really all they care about, and the money for all their fees and paperwork and stuff. It's really all they care about is the money. But as far as your safety, as long as the structural engineer signs off on it, you will be able to build whatever you want. And again, the structural engineer needs the R value engineer paperwork. So you'll be good. No one has to really worry about that. Sounds like a long wait. Thanks. Yeah, not really. I'm actually reaching out to other companies that do the R value. I'm trying to find someone who has a better deal price-wise to do the sample testing. So I have one engineer that's definitely able to do it, but I'm trying to get a deal because I want to have a lot of samples tested. And last time I had a quote for like 13 samples or something tested. It was an outrageous number. It was like $20,000. I was like, holy crap. I said, never mind. How about just one sample? And that one sample is like $2,000. That's not their fee, but that's what everything comes out to between making it and sending it and receiving it and their fees and all the nonsense. It was way more than I expected. So I am still trying to locate some other licensed R value engineers, and I'm still looking for better quotes out there. But that's what's up with the R value testing. And yeah, as soon as that testing's done, the testing's quick. So they'll test it, they'll send me back paperwork saying your whatever sample I'm sending is X amount of R value, and we'll know the numbers. We'll finally know the numbers, because again, I have not seen any professional R value testing done to any of these alternative samples. Like even Papercrete, I haven't heard of any real R value testing done to Papercrete, or Styrocrete or Styro Aircrete, or any of these things. Like Stephen Williams, when he came out with this Styro Aircrete, he did do a DIY R value test, and he came out with some numbers, and so it is a direction, but again, it's not a lab tested sample. So that's really what we all need, is licensed engineer, lab tested, and we'll finally know what the R value is for all of these different mixes. Excuse me. Yes, sir. Exactly. 100%. So a single 24 double shell at 5 grand right now. Um, a single 20-foot dome shell at 5 grand right now. If you're saying to build one, yeah, you're looking probably about 5 grand. Again, the price will depend where you're building your dome and how thick you're making it will determine the price as well. So if you're going to build a dome and you're going to have 6-inch thick walls, some of that can be insulation, or you're going to have 8-inch thick walls, is going to really determine the price of the dome, because it's more material. The thicker you make it, the more materials you're going to need. So if you're in a warm, like if you're in Texas or something, 4 to 6-inch thickness would be all you need. But if you're like in Montana, you're going to want to go up to like 8 inches, 6 minimum to 8, 10, or even 12 inches for insulation, just to be like really nice and cozy and have a really efficient, really energy efficient structure. So yeah, you could get away with 5 grand with building a 24-foot dome. It's completely possible. Tornadoes ravish AL and GA a month ago. Oh wow, that's yeah. Sorry again. I don't know. I'll try to block the wind a little with my hand. It's starting to really get windy now. Oh, let me finish this. A month ago, this one fella barely survived as his roof, floor, and living room were blown away while he was inside. He got buried in a crawl space. Should have had a dome home. At the very least, and what I even recommended was just having a dome shelter. Because you just described this guy, he's in his crawl space and he survived. So his basement clearly didn't help. And again, a lot of these homes, I've seen these videos of these tornadoes. They just, it's crazy. They go through like the homes are toys. They just completely get ripped apart in a second. You're going to have a home you've been living in, decades, centuries. Your family could have been in centuries, but you could have been living in there decades. And in 2 seconds, the tornado just destroys it. It's amazing, the power of nature. And hurricanes, you have the famous dome down in Florida. I think it's the name of it. The dome is called the Eye of the Storm. And this dome has survived multiple hurricanes to the point where the homes built with standard building methods were completely destroyed. Over and over, like multiple times, the homes around this dome in Florida were destroyed, and the dome still standing strong. And yeah, so there's a video that I made also, why build a dome. I think that's what I named it. And I show that video of the Eye of the Storm dome and a bunch of other domes that were in fires and hurricanes, tornadoes. And yeah, they're just incredibly strong structures and really inexpensive, especially when you're building yourself. I mean, obviously, if you got to pay a contractor to build it, it's going to be a lot more money. And yeah, so let's see what else we got here. Got it. Start with R value, then focus on engineering. Yeah, well, you don't have to start with R value. You just have to sign up if you haven't. And buy the $200 R value listing, because once we have all the funds available, I could send the samples out to get tested, and everyone who chipped in for the R value test will have the paperwork, and everyone in the future, wow, the wind is like getting stupid now. It's probably like 20 miles an hour. I'm on top of my RV here. doing this because it was close to my dome with the internet connection. And so, anyway, yeah, so that's the deal with the domes, with the R value, with the engineering. And something I was going to make another video, but I'll just say this now. I'm planning on what I want to do is get contractors from around the US, building contractors who are interested in building domes, because I get a lot of emails from people around the country, really around the world, but there's a lot just in the US alone that are, they're reaching out to me to build a dome. They want me to build a dome. I only teach how to build domes besides building my own domes. Reason I do that is because building your own dome is going to be the least expensive way to go. And most people are trying to save money, which is why this DIY system is so good. Because if I had to pay a contractor to do what I'm doing for my home, you're talking about adding probably $60,000 to the cost of this dome build. So I'm saving myself thousands and tens of thousands of dollars by building yourself. But the fact is, there are a lot of people who are elderly or people who just have the money and would rather have someone else build it for them. That's great. But I just am not the person to do it because, number one, I don't have a contractor's license for whatever state you're in. Even the state that I live in, I don't have a contractor's license because that's not my job. I don't go around building domes for people. And if you're building your own home on your own land, you can be your own contractor. There's no problem with that. But bottom line is, there are a lot of people who want to have a dome built and they don't want to do it for themselves. So if you know a contractor or if you are a contractor, send me an email if you're interested. The next video I'm going to make, I'm going to talk about more about the contractor side. I'll get into the contractor's tools. I'll get into reusable airforms, which is what a contractor would want ideally. Obviously they could build their own airforms, but if you're a contractor, you can have a few airform sizes that you can have on hand, reusable. So long as you take care of these airforms, with each airform, you could potentially build over 100 domes. And again, if you're taking care of the airforms, probably more than 100 domes. And this is definitely something to consider. The reusable airforms, they are more expensive, but they are reusable. The other benefit with the reusable airforms is the material is stronger than the Tyvek. The Tyvek airforms really is for someone to build themselves because, again, they're saving so much money rather than have someone build the airform for them. And they are one-time use. So you're only meant to use them one time because when you spray the cement onto it, it ends up sticking to the Tyvek. So when it comes time to remove the Tyvek, what you'll find is a thin layer will peel off. So that thin layer peeling off is now making the Tyvek weaker. Could you use it a second time? Potentially. But if you did use it, you did start spraying, and then the Tyvek just exploded or, burst it because it was weak, then you're going to have a lot of problems because that second dome you're attempting to build, you've just wasted all the cement you sprayed on it. You just wasted all your time. And so that's why I do not recommend using a Tyvek airform 2 times. So they're one-time use. So getting the reusable airforms, and again, if you need, you contact me about reusable airforms. This is what I would recommend for contractors because you're building multiple domes and you'll have certain sizes you could offer clients. I would say the maximum is a 40 foot for reusable airform. That would be the maximum size you could build. And then obviously you can go down. I have even a 8 foot airform, 8 foot dome airform, which is anyway, I wasn't going to get into it in this video, but yeah. So if you know a contractor or you are a contractor and you want to get into building domes, the next video I am going to get into that about contractor tools like the shotcrete machine and the reusable air forms and air compressors. And yeah, there's a lot of benefits to the reusable air forms because they are stronger. Also, you could spray, you can apply all of your rebar and spray just about all of your cement like on the first day because they are high pressure air forms. So you have to use a powerful blower that just keeps blowing a lot of high pressure air in, and it just holds the weight of everything up. It's really incredible. But they're heavy and expensive compared to Tyvek. And that's the reason I didn't use them because they were so heavy. Because I'm building solo, that's the only reason I didn't use them because you need at least 3 people to maneuver the airforms and to mount it because you need someone actually mounting it and you're going to need someone else holding it up because of the weight would be on your neck. It's crazy. But anyway, can you speak to any of the gassing of cement as it cures and how long you would wait until it no longer off gases and how it would compare to magnesium based cement? Well, you can't compare it because they're completely different. The magnesium based cement is a mineral. It's a mineral that your body needs. I mean, I don't say do this, but technically you could eat magnesium cement. Again, I don't say do that, but if you're taking magnesium tablets, it's not that far off from the magnesium oxide that's being used. So what I actually recommend, if off gassing of Portland cement is any concern at all, I don't have the numbers of how many hours or days it takes for off gassing of cement. I don't know what that number is, but I do share the concern when it comes to my water tank. My water tank, I will be making an egg-shaped water tank out of Portland cement and sand, but the inside of my tank will be coated with a magnesium-based cement. Now, the magnesium cements are probably double or even triple the price of Portland cement. You could get, a 92-pound bag of Portland cement for like, I don't know what the price is now. It might be like $20. But a bag of magnesium cement would cost you about $60 for the same bag, maybe even more than $60 for that same 92-pound bag. But the difference is, especially in the magnesium cement that I'm talking about, there's a few companies that I would buy magnesium cement from. It is difficult to mix your own cement and get it right, so you have the strength and it doesn't dissolve when it rains. The benefit is the magnesium cement will cure to like 10,000 psi. So you're talking about something that is way stronger than Portland cement. And what I would recommend is just making a liquid mix of magnesium cement and spraying it or just brushing it onto your Portland cement, because magnesium cement sticks to everything. So if you're building a dome the way I build it using an airform, once you've completed your structure and you remove the airform, you'll find the walls on the inside are very smooth because they were touching the smooth surface of the airform. The cement was touching the airform. So you get very smooth surface. Very little finishing work needs to be done. So what I'm getting at is your magnesium base cement can be applied thinly to the walls and give you a protective coating. I do recommend it. It is something I'm planning to do for my home, and just to have that magnesium based cement. So I don't know how long it takes for it to off gas. I've never had an issue with it. Only when I use certain additives to the cement do I smell anything. It like if I use latex and stuff like that, then you would get a heavy smell. So I don't use latex on the inner part of the dome because I don't want to smell it. But otherwise, it doesn't take long. Once the cement's cured, so if you normally what's recommended for Portland cement, well, it's getting really windy, and you guys are gonna have to tell me if the wind is affecting my audio because I can't tell because I can't hear myself. But your I lost my train of thought. But your magnesium cement is good, and I was gonna say the cement, the cure time, the standard cure time for Portland cement is 4 weeks. 28 days is the time they say Portland cement takes to cure, but it's actually it continues to cure even longer than after 24 days. But after 24 days, your cement should be cured. Remember now, cement it does dry, but what the concrete is doing, what your Portland cement doing, is a chemical process, which is curing. And so after it cures and dries, you won't smell anything, and it won't take but a few days. And if you're really, really concerned with that, there are, air quality testing machines you could get to test the air and parts per million in the air and stuff like that. So technically, if you really wanted to, you could test your air. But you're not going to really have a problem because there's millions of homes made every day with cement and people live in them. My family in Puerto Rico builds, all the all the walls are cinder blocked and covered with, a stucco cement coating, and no problem. Holy cow, this wind has gotten crazy already. So yeah, I wouldn't personally. I do care about my health. I watch all of these things. I don't want to be in any type of toxic environment. But when you're looking at the cost to build, really the only way to go is the Portland cement. Unless you have the money and a lot of it, and you want to build completely out of magnesium, I'm 100% for it. Because I wanted to build a dome. I was going to build a dome, a 40-foot dome with magnesium-based cement. But when I finished calculating it, it was going to cost me $60,000 to build a 2-inch thick shell from magnesium. I'm not even sure it's 2 inch. It might have been 1 inch thick. A 40-foot dome, 1 inch thick with magnesium cement was going to cost $60,000 opposed to $10,000. So, I said, okay. But the compromise that I just gave, I think is the best. Where basically you're going to do a magnesium wash. You're going to just cover every surface of Portland cement on the inside of your home with a thin coating of magnesium-based cement. Again, magnesium will stick to everything and anything. And so I would do that, like 1/16 of an inch, really thin coating, because it's going to stick. It's going to be really strong. Maybe use a fiberglass mesh just for extra strength. You could get a fiberglass mesh that has a sticky side, so you could stick it to your smooth Portland cement walls, and then apply just enough magnesium to cover that fiberglass mesh. The mesh is super thin. So you're gonna put a really thin coating, and you'll be good. That magnesium has a lot of good energetic effects for the human body, and yeah. So I really love the idea of magnesium cement. I do not love the price of magnesium cement. As far as I could give you one name off the top of my head, Gigapanel. Gigapanel is a Las Vegas-based company that builds homes using foam panel blocks. So they custom cut foam blocks. They custom cut these giant foam blocks to make wall panels, and they custom bend their own um, steel studs. They custom make everything there, and what they do is for their building method's really nice too. I've always liked their building method. It's very fast, but still not as inexpensive as the system I'm building with, and so that's the big reason I went my route is because of cost. But the Giga panel, they do make a cement, a magnesium based cement. And again, if you really look into magnesium, you can't just grab magnesium oxide, mix water, and say, oh, it's good to go. You have to have the right mixes of sand and whatever other ingredients you need to add to make it a good, viable cement. So it's not water soluble. And so Giga Panel or Giga something, I'm pretty sure it's Giga Panel. They're in Las Vegas and they sell magnesium based cement that is very strong. They have fire ratings. You know, all this testing was done with their cement. And it's where I bought my cement from before in the past. But they're not the only company. You can look up magnesium based cement. There's other companies that make magnesium cement uh, for road work. You know, for patching up the street potholes and things. They usually will do the patch up with a magnesium based cement because it cures much faster as well. You know, within 20 minutes it could be cured to like 1500 psi, and within 6 hours it could be cured to like 4000 psi. So there's a lot of benefits to magnesium based cement. The only downside is the cost. Otherwise, if that were not the case, I would only use magnesium based cement, and that's a fact. Man, I went on and on about magnesium. What's this? What? Let me see. Can you speak to any? Okay, that was the off gassing. So if you wanted to be around R60, probably more than 2 feet between. Yeah, well, we don't know. Once the testing's done, then we'll know what it is, and then you can determine exactly how thick you need to make it for to reach the R60 if that's what you're going for, which would definitely be great for the northern climates. But yeah, I don't know. 2 feet, 2 feet would be incredible insulation. You'd probably be beyond R60 with my super lightweight Aircrete mix. And also, even with wall cavities that thick, you can make a styro Aircrete, which would be probably have even more insulation value using a styro Aircrete that you could easily pump into the wall cavity. And styro Aircrete is another favorite of mine. I really like styro Aircrete. I made a great styro Aircrete brick that's really lightweight and you could just tell. Hey Harry, don't fly away, honey. Yeah, I try not to. I can't believe how lucky I got. I came on at 9 and it was like no wind, but that was it. Like it's gonna be windy until tomorrow now. That's the way it is this time of year here. Reusable airphones would be a great investment. Agreed. Thank you, Mrs. Aircrete. James W. Sounds like the Epic Mix is the way to go if I don't want to do bricks or double shell. Yes, that is exactly right. The Epic Mix is incredible. I started building my domes using purely Epic, but I've switched now to using a stucco cement first for that first structural shell, because you're going to get maximum strength and maximum thermal battery efficiency. And then I use the Epic as my insulative mix. So with the Epic, there's different ratios. So I'll start off with the stronger mix. So on top of like my 1 or 2 inch stucco shell, I might put an inch of the oak wood, which is the second strongest mix of the Epic. The first being the ironwood mix. But I'll do an oak on top of my cement stucco, and then after about 2 inches of the oak, which also has styrofoam mixed into it with paper, I'll do about 4 to 6 inches of the balsa mix, which is the really light, just has a lot of styrofoam mixed into it. Anytime it has some great R value and it has a lot of strength to it. You might have seen the videos where I've hit an Epic brick with a sledgehammer, and it just makes a dent in it. It doesn't even crack until like after like 6 blows or something. But yeah, the Epic mix is super strong. Technically, you can make your entire dome purely of Epic, like I did with my first dome. This one right here, I'm standing next to. This 16-footer is all Epic. The foundation is Epic. The dome itself is Epic, and it's only 3 inches thick. And this is our, I don't know, third or fourth winter now. I'm losing track. Time is flying by. Yeah, so we've been living in that dome, and we've been very comfortable. So anyway, any issues if shells are far apart? No issues at all. They'd just be further apart, and you have more of a cavity to fill with your insulated mix. But anyway, I think that's going to be it for now. It's over an hour. The wind's getting crazy. I'm about to get blown off of this RV here. So yeah, it's been great talking to everyone. I enjoy putting the videos out. I'm going to be putting some other videos out. Oh, the hyperbolic paraboloid. No one even asked about that. So anyway, I think that's going to be my next video. I'm going to talk about the hyperbolic paraboloid, because I have the airform and I'm going to be building that. And so that's going to be taking me kind of away from domes, but still using an airform to build something that has dome ends on it. So it'll be a long stretched out dome. Anyway, I'll get into that in the other video. But that's it for now. Let me see. For winter, baby. Yeah, that's right, love. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Aircrete. Great, we got a $10 super chat. As above, so below. Agreed. Anyway, with that beautiful $10 donation, I'm gonna leave you off with a peace out. I love you all, and I'll catch you later.